Hello. Welcome to Afterthoughts.
Yes.
I'm Andrew, and I brought someone from off the streets today. Just kidding.
Does anybody recognize me anymore?
I do. It's good to see your face again.
I'm Delton, for those of you who don't know me, because I haven't been around much.
No, not for the last 2 weeks.
That's right.
Which is good. You guys were on vacation?
On vacation, yes.
Okay,
it was a total of, it was like 14 days. We left on a Tuesday and crossed the state line on a Tuesday and crossed the state line on a Tuesday.
That's
2 weeks
awesome.
later. Spent the whole time in Colorado.
Awesome. Cool. So what sorts of things did you guys do there?
Okay, so we spent a little time in southern Colorado. We had a couple of goal spots. One, we wanted to spend some time just alone, just Dawn and I, in Airbnbs in the mountains and just chill time, stay in your pajamas all day kind of days. A few of those. Mm-hmm. And we had some friends in Colorado Springs area Monument, maybe like 2 days there. Then about 4 or 5 days up with our son and his wife, Joshua, his wife, in the Vail Valley, a little town called Edwards. So that's on I-70 West. And so anyway, awesome. Colorado's a big go-to place for us. And so we had some designated space, but some spaces in there. We spent 2 nights in one Airbnb and then 4 nights in another Airbnb, just the two of us, and it was just great. It was, and some deer, and we even got a little bit of snow one day.
Awesome.
But for the most part, it was 45 at night, 75 during the day. So
great. Do you have like a highlight? Every time my kids in youth group, not my kids, but kids in youth group, I always ask for highlights, highs and lows.
Right.
So do you probably no lows, but do you have any highs?
Right. There could be some lows.
There might be.
But can I ask a question of anybody that's listening? Anybody that's listening, if you could take, and maybe you can, I don't know if you can, so we feel it an honor, but we really hadn't taken any vacation in 2020 at all. So 2 full weeks, it was really, had to work hard to make that happen. But anyway, if you got 2 weeks that you could just leave and go 2 weeks, kind of money, no object, what would you do? Where would you go? So if you want to spit that back to us, we'd love to. What's the pie in the sky? So high points, one, spending time with Dawn and my wife, traveling. We spent a lot of time together, but we enjoy each other's company, really best friends. And so that was nice. And the times alone. Yeah. That was one. It's not like, the another one that ranks just like this is spending time with our son. Yeah. Because we've seen them a little bit since they got married. Got married December 27th last year, and then saw them one time in May. But really spent time, the first time we've been in their home as a married couple, and they're just doing great, and it was delightful. And so he's a DCE, has the same certification that you have, and in a church in Gracious Savior Lutheran Church in Edwards, Colorado. And so he preaches occasionally. So last Sunday, when you were preaching, he was preaching. So it must have been Sundays for DCEs to preach, or for National DCE Preaching Day. And so that was high point. And so this is crazy. So they're doing a series at his church on the 10 Commandments, and it just so happened the Sunday he's preaching is the Sunday we're there, and it's the 4th commandment: honor your father and your mother. And so did that help him, or did that make him a little bit more nervous? I wonder. Awesome. He did a great job. As did you as well. Yeah. So do we get any ideas? Where are you going to go? I've heard some, Austin says Canada. Canada. Explore. Yes. Wouldn't that be great? Yes. It'd be fun to do like a road trip. I feel like this is perfect COVID, maybe some people might want to. I love road tripping. That's kind of what we did when we'd go through some towns and some roads we'd never been before in Colorado. Just to like vagabond across the country. That's right. However, wherever the wind blows and takes me. A cruise to the Greek islands. Oh yeah, take me. That's good. That was a option for me and Rachel before COVID about honeymoons was Greece. That was one of our. Is that right? Yeah, that would be fun. So there must be some islands off when you talk about Greek islands just around. Yeah. I know there's like Crete, I think that's Kelly Williams is doing that, and I think her and her husband were stationed when they were in the Navy, stationed in Greece for a while too, so they know that. Vermont in the fall. Okay, so for those of you just now joining, If you got 2 weeks off, like my wife and I just returned from, where would you go? What would you do? So Greece, there's another Greece.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay.
You know, Marty says Vermont, and then.
Okay, this time of the year, or probably just a little before this.
Yeah, the colors.
We caught some color of the aspen trees, and but it was probably especially in most of the deep, big aspen forests that are pretty high. We were too late for them, but we caught some of that color. Took a few pictures. Great. Fall, San Pedro, Belize.
For Lobster Fest.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Anybody else? Where are we going to go if you got 14 days to go?
I'm trying to think of where I would go. I don't know, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Canada would.
Okay, you're married less than a year, so are you going to take your wife if you go?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's a good answer.
Cool. Yeah. We have fun together.
You bet you do.
That would be fun. It would be good we could get away.
So if without COVID, where would you have gone on your honeymoon?
We had booked, actually, flights and an Airbnb in one of the ABC islands in the
Playa del Carmen kind of thing? Or
yeah. Like a tropical. I can't remember what it was
Caribbean?
called now.
A Caribbean?
Curacao.
Okay, all right.
We had a little Airbnb with like its own little private beach and everything.
Colorado with the RV. That's good.
Colorado would be fun. I haven't been there in a while.
Good.
I've always wanted to go to like Seattle. It was a big place in like the movies in the 2000s, you know.
Seattle.
And so I've always thought that would be fun to go look at Seattle. And
I've never been to the Northwest.
Yeah.
Okay, so Washington, Seattle, and then coming in like Idaho.
My cousins live in Seattle, or not in
Really?
Seattle, but in Washington, in a different town.
Yeah.
And I went there once in high school, and it was so much fun, and I'd love to go back.
Yeah. I know that some of those places that's a Northwest. That's a trip sometime. Haven't done that one. And I know some people have done that, go to Washington and then take a cruise to Alaska. I have been to Alaska, but.
There's a bunch of national parks up there.
Oregon is beautiful. Yeah. Oh. I'm sorry, what?
Austin says he's from Seattle. He recommends it.
Oh, very good.
Awesome.
Good. So while I was gone, we had a guest preacher here.
A guest preacher.
This past Sunday. Yes.
This past Sunday.
Andrew Cordy.
That's me.
That's right.
I did it.
And I'm so thankful that we have wonderful teams of people, some of which are here now today that are recording this and have cameras and all this, that we've gone online so that I could participate in worship. We were with our son and his on Sunday at about the time you guys were worshiping. We were also worshiping actually in person. And across, no matter where we went, it's pretty much the same: masks, social distancing, that sort of thing. So we were able to pick up the service later once we got out of the mountains and we could get good reception. Then we picked up the service, and I enjoyed it very much. So bravo!
Thank you.
It was good. We're continuing this series, so let's move into it a little bit,
yeah,
okay? Because I got some questions for you.
This is so fun.
Yeah,
to kind of have this little. Here are all these ideas, or this is how God led me. Now, what do you think?
Yeah, that's
It's kind of fun to be on this side of it.
Well, it is, and I've always appreciated being a pastor and being the preacher and participating in afterthoughts, because I'm sure you've had thoughts afterwards.
Yeah.
About how this came out actually, and what the impact, and then discussion, and so we got to get this verse first to get us going. Okay, look, share this first of all, because this conversation, I think, can be really rich. I mean, Andrew and I are going to do an okay job, but the topic is so crucial.
Yeah.
How we are or are not handling anxiety is absolutely out of this world important. I don't know if there is a more important topic right now in our culture than promoting a healthy way to handle anxiety, because everybody's just on the edge. I mean, this series is just the right time.
I agree. We were an
How
anxious.
many marriages are affected?
Yeah.
Families, parenting, everything.
And we were an anxious culture before, and we have now a lot of other things on top of that that are adding to this.
Right. It puts us on the edge a lot quicker too. So our verse for the series, come to me, Jesus now, big words, great words. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls.
Yeah.
For my yoke is easy, my burden is light. The layers in that verse, here we're on our third, fourth week of it, and I'm trying to begin to get ready for this coming Sunday, and I'm preaching a while, so I don't know how that's going to go. But powerful layers there.
Yeah.
You took the concept of yoke and reinterpreted it for us on Sunday. Talk to me about yoke.
Yeah, so I think
some analogies that were helpful.
For me, it's helpful to think of it, when I normally think of a yolk, if other than an egg yolk, this kind of yolk, contextually.
Spelled differently.
Yes,
so
right.
Good.
What an oxen carry, I think of a
yoke, two
covered
oxen.
wagon is pulling.
Yeah, right.
That kind of yoke.
Yoke of oxen.
Which is a fine interpretation of, but I think you mentioned the first week that, people had personal yokes that would have been helpful for them to help carry all the things that they need.
Right, that thing that comes over and
and
hangs down. And
put their tools in and maybe like a lunch for later and water.
Yeah, right.
And
heavy stuff, but you're doing your shoulders with.
Right, and so it was helpful for me to think, okay, like a hiking backpack. I mentioned on Sunday, a hiking backpack.
That's the analogy that was
because, and for me, I've had a backpacking backpack that you need to go for like a week, and you put everything on your back, and it's got to fit you right. It's got to be the right size. It's got to do this, and that would have been an aspect of a personal yoke, is that it fits you, and by fitting you, it allows the load you're carrying to be light. You're still carrying there's still stuff to carry, but it allows a lightness to the load because it fits you right.
Right.
And so,
well, you can carry so much more.
And for longer.
And you almost feel like free. Your hands are free, but yet you're carrying what you need. And it's amazing. Those hikers, backpackers, those guys, people, men and women that really know what they're doing. And I had my kids, when they were teenagers, they would go to camp, work in a camp in Colorado all summer, and they knew what they were doing. They could get so much in those backpacks. They would literally live a week in the mountains.
And it's there's one time where I was flying back from somewhere, and I had only taken a backpack, like a pretty big backpack, and I was standing in the customs line, and those lines are always long, and it was like 2 hours or something, and I'm standing there with it on my back, and it's not a backpack that was fitted for long use.
Right.
And I remember my back was hurting, and my legs and my shoulders and everything hurt because it wasn't fit to my body right. It was not designed for that. And so thinking of Jesus having this yoke that is designed and fitted for you, and it's easy, it creates this light.
So this yoke that he's talking about being the way to carry the loads of life. We are going to carry the loads of life. And I love Jesus' honesty in this statement. He's saying, you're going to carry loads.
Right.
You were wired to be people who took responsibility, who were productive, and accomplished things and made a difference. We're meant to. We wouldn't have meaning to life if we weren't here to make a difference.
It was fun this is a thought that I had leading into preparing for the sermon that I didn't say, but something important for me to realize was, in the Garden of Eden, where everything was perfect and they were in perfect unity with God, Adam and Eve, Adam still had a job to do.
He had a yoke. He had a load.
He still had a load.
Responsibility.
But he could carry it, and it was not a heavy load because of the unity or whatever with God.
The union with God, right? God breathed in him the breath of life.
I mean, God asked him, name all these creatures.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Take care of the garden.
And it was like,
have dominion over it.
That's a lot of things. That's a lot to do.
This is huge. This is huge right here. And we didn't even talk about this beforehand. But no, part of Jesus is saying, look, don't think that no responsibility is your answer to rest.
Yes.
Don't think that no responsibility is your answer to rest. Sometimes I think that because that's where that vacation can be different than rest. Vacation, but you still have responsibility. You have the car, you have your relationships and everything. So responsibilitylessness is not rest.
Yeah, And I think
it's not what we really need.
This is probably not a perfect thing, but I was thinking about Groundhog Day, that movie.
Yeah.
Where that's, if you think about it, that's sort of like a responsibility-less existence that he's having, because nothing he does makes any matter.
Right.
And that's not fulfilling.
So Jesus is saying, okay, but take my yoke, take my way of carrying the loads of life, and it'll fit you better, and there will be an ease to it, and trust me, I am gentle and humble in heart. I just love that. So this whole series then is we're trying to unpack what are some of the ways that Jesus says this is how you carry the loads of life. And it's so interesting that, well, first of all, one of the ways that you illustrated the loads of life that cause anxiety, because anxiety is when the loads of life seem like this big and I seem like this big and, feel the weight. The weight is too much. We're anxious and so, Jesus, how should I carry this so that would be less anxious? And you talked about spinning plates, right?
Yeah. I don't really know where that came from,
But the idea that, okay, you got a lot of things, responsibilities.
Yeah. If I don't tend to it, it'll crash.
Right.
And it'll fall apart.
So you pictured yourself, if I remember correctly, like running around a gym, a whole gymnasium.
And that's just what picture came to my mind of this gymnasium full of spinning plates that I have to run around and keep up.
And those are your kind of responsibilities and stuff like that.
And I think it matches just real life so much because,
how do you keep life afloat?
And something can be wobbling and you don't even notice it, and then it crashes and it throws your whole game off and everything, and it can cause a chain reaction. So it fit, I think.
Right. It does. So yeah, right. So spinning plates, and so how, and then the verse that so how do we keep the plates spinning I'm loving it because I'm gonna actually pick up next week with this. So, okay, so this is a little teaser for Sunday. So come on Sunday and in person online and bring a friend because we're going to talk about are all those spinning plates actually mine to spin? Wouldn't it be something if Jesus says, why are you spinning that plate? That's not,
I think there was part of that in, one of the tensions with this whole idea of spinning plates and praying to God. And
Right.
Is you're praying to God, don't you see my plates that are falling over? Can't you help me with this?
Well, and so then all of a sudden this becomes, it's prayers of frustration because why aren't you fixing this?
And there's a freedom in being able to say that, but also more freedom in realizing God, this is the end of the sermon, but God, whatever you do is good.
Right. So
which leads you to.
Right. Hang on to that. Okay, so let's look at the verse. So hang on to that. But the key verse that you went into, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. The Apostle Paul, writing to the Philippians, let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. The peace of God will guard your hearts. That's what we want, right? So that's the key verse. So this whole idea of prayer as so prayer and this peace from God is what you're saying is a key part of Jesus' way of carrying the loads of life.
Yeah. And I think it's again, I can't wait for my life to become unanxious enough for me to thrive. My anxious world to become unanxious enough.
Okay, you made that point. So what you're saying is, one, we will have our own ways of thinking.
Yeah, there will be.
About dealing with anxiety.
Yeah, because oftentimes, peace, normally, when I think of peace, is that nothing bad is happening to me.
Right.
But I don't think that's the peace that he's talking about Because in the context, Paul has lots of bad things that are happening.
Bad his circumstances are not good.
No.
But he's okay. He's good.
And he's fine, so how do I get that?
So that I can be good when my circumstances are not good.
Right. How can I thrive in my anxious world?
Bingo.
And so then it took me on this long rabbit hole of, okay, what is peace? What is thriving? What is this? How is this? How is that?
So talk to me about you peace. So
yeah.
Peace, and that's what I think Jesus, when he says rest, right? Mm-hmm. That's rest for your souls. I mean, that's peace, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, they're reading from the same playbook, or Paul's reading from Jesus' playbook, maybe.
Right. Uh-huh.
You made this comment about it. Paul has this figured out a lot more, so let's try to learn some things.
Yeah.
But we have our own ways. You called it our human ways of trying to get peace. Mm-hmm. Fake peace. Talk to me about fake peace.
Yeah.
And you leaned into Tim Keller.
So there was a sermon I found online, actually on these passages. He went in a different direction, but there was a point where he was talking about what is peace and what does that even mean. And I had to listen to it a couple times. And the first time it didn't really resonate at all. The second time I was like, whoa, okay, you're on, this is something important. And he said, peace is confidence in God's control and ordering of our lives. And then he contrasted that. So we have peace being confidence in what God's going to do with my life, in my life and through my life. Mm-hmm. And then he contrasted that with, okay, so how do we normally create peace on our own? Because it's possible for us to try to do this without God.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's...
I mean, I normally am doing that.
The nature.
that is,
what comes natural to us.
That's what, yes.
Because we thrive for peace. We want peace.
Yes. And so
rest.
How do I do that normally is either... So either nothing matters, meaning, like again, back to the spinning plate thing, if that plate falls over, it doesn't matter.
Right, so it's a cynicism kind of thing,
mm-hmm.
like, okay, I'm not going to let pretty much anything matter enough that if it falls apart, because I know it probably will.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
It's okay, it's not going to rock my world, so I detach a little bit from...
Yeah, I
don't get too connected.
Mm-hmm. And you don't let yourself feel a lot, so you don't get let down a lot.
Don't let yourself feel. Okay, kind of is cynicism. I think
cynicism, distancing yourself from things,
emotionally, so
closing
don't be too
your
invested,
heart,
and kind of this plate's going to fall sooner or later, so let me just be ready for it. So I'll always be.
And I think that comes out. Actually, I was just thinking of. It's like, oh, I'm being realistic. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm being very realistic.
Oh, yeah.
I'm being very rational about this.
Right. So, okay, so that's one side. Mm-hmm. And then you had that, you actually said that number two. Nothing matters. And number one was?
I have to control everything. Okay. And so, contrasting this with nothing matters, peace, is that everything matters a whole lot. And
I'm the best one in charge?
And it matters so much to me. So therefore, I have to try to control it because it has to be perfect. Otherwise, I can't handle that because it matters a lot. Mm-hmm. So, talking about, for me, that comes out in relationships. Thinking about relationships matter a lot, and specifically, what people think of me, I think matters. It matters a lot to me. So I have to control that. Otherwise, I can't handle if it's bad.
Yeah.
So it comes out of. I have to organize everything so everything works together.
And you have to try to manipulate the right kind of feedback from people.
Yeah,
I'm notorious for that.
Mm-hmm.
Early in my preaching career, and sometimes later, unfortunately, you're tempted to say, "What you think? What you think? What you think?" You're right. Because you need that feedback. But that's a control. So we've got this control. I'm interested. Okay, so let's do fake peace, or human-generated peace. Number one. Take control. 2, distance, cynicism, kind of, didn't really matter anyway. Trying to get an equilibrium in life, 2 ways. Which one do you lean towards? Mm-hmm. Number 1, we'll call it nothing matters, and number 1 is take control, 2, nothing matters. Which one do you struggle with, or is there another kind of, I would love for you guys to type in something. Allow this to just process for a second. How do I go for peace on my own?
Mm-hmm. I know that there's crossover in my life of
like we do both.
Like in some areas of my life, probably I lean towards nothing matters. That's definitely a place that at least when I was when I was thinking about it, that was what came first. I was like, oh yeah, I do that. But the control I do in other places, like I said, with relationships, most times. So it was, and there are times where it blends over, and then there are times. Yeah.
So I think for me, probably my natural bent is more on the control side. And sometimes I can feel it now that I'm thinking about it. This is really healthy. Is to, when I'm feeling anxious, that's the test, right? Oh, Andrew, I think you're onto something. The test is when I'm anxious, how do I try to reduce anxiety, which is how do I move towards peace? Do I take control, or do I just get away?
Yeah.
Hide.
And it's such a, they're so slippery. They're such a slippery thing because, one sense is like detachment, which is a very
not healthy.
Right. And some, you're trying to detach.
Right.
And there's an unhealthy level of detachment and a healthy level of it, and it's so easy to just slip into it. And then the control, organizing and ordering and caring about things is not bad, but it's over. It's just, and it's such a slippery.
Right. The trouble is our sinful nature, my sinful nature, will take something good like, and just. And go to the excess. We don't know where the limit is. Sinful nature gets something and it's good, but then just like pushes it too far because we're really trying to ask something of ourselves that is not possible for ourselves to create. And peace is one of those things.
Yeah.
So Paul's thing is prayer, going to him, and you talked about when it comes to prayer. And to basically going to God, right? And trusting God. Because I think in between these two poles is trust. How do I live trusting God? And you talked about 2 courts. So the whole idea of, spinning plates.
Yeah, spinning plates.
You asked us to picture on a basketball court all these spinning plates you're running around. But then you said, oh, no, I've got 2 basketball courts of spinning plates. Talk to me about that.
Yes. It's like I'm layering ideas on top of each other, but that's just how my brain works. So there we go.
We got an introduction to Andrew's brain.
Talk
to me about 2 courts.
It makes sense because
it does.
If you imagine a court, and you have all these spinning plates, you're never going to be able to get to them all.
Right.
And as a Christian, I know I'm supposed to pray about these things.
Right.
And I know that, and I do know God's going to take care of things. And I do know that He wants to. Am I trusting Him with everything? Or am I separating things off in my own life?
That's what you were talking about.
It was a split of like, these things I know God cares about. These things, of course He cares about these things. Of course He's going to keep this going. Of course He's going to provide in this way. Right. And for me, it came out in this whole, I'm not sure God. I have all these other things that really matter to me, but I don't know if they matter to God.
So this was kind of a humble admission on your part when it comes to prayer as key thing to Jesus' yoke of how do you carry the loads of life. You were saying, there's a whole category that I don't pray about naturally.
Yes. Yeah, there were things.
And then did you begin to think, why is that?
For me, I don't pray about them because it was not. I wasn't sure that they cared enough.
That God cared?
That God cared. There was a. Does God care about these things? And if I give them to them, if I give these plates to God to spin, is He going to let them crash? Can I trust Him with these plates?
Right.
And that was difficult.
But that's an honesty.
It's honest, and it was just what I realized I had been doing in my life.
Right.
It was not conscious at all. It was just part of part of me, part of what I was thinking of, and the one, because he says in every situation, pray in every situation
Right.
about it. Don't be anxious about anything, but in everything. So that sort of sparked this, wait, what am I praying about?
Get all your plates on Jesus' court.
Exactly.
So part of the yoke, okay, there's nothing that God is not interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And interested in you talking to him about and stuff like that. Me. So that's a huge part. Actually, as you were going through the message, I was realizing that a big part of the way that God was using you to lead us was, and a big part of taking on the yoke, it made sense to me, and as we continue the series, is just we need change of thinking. A huge part, before we can actually have a change of practice is a change of thinking. Otherwise, we'll try to do a new practice, but we really haven't changed our thinking yet about things. And so there was something about your thinking about God when you rocked and rolled with these verses, that God was leading you, maybe inviting you into a change of thinking.
Yeah.
Because there was a point in the sermon where you kind of got excited. It's toward the end about like, oh man, let's go, let's do life, because, I mean,
well,
you have a Father in heaven, whatever.
What changed for me
was... What was the change of thinking, some of the changes of thinking?
The change in thinking was, and it sounds so simple, but that I do have a Father in heaven that cares about these plates, that cares about me, that cares about things, that cares about...
Good. Yes.
Loves you very much.
That loves me very much. So, and I can trust him with what he's going to do. I can trust him with what he's going to do because of what he's done in the past and because of our relationship now. So, and that it's not easy to trust him in the future. I don't want to discount that's hard. That is difficult.
Faith is hard.
Yeah. But, and I didn't really dive, you could, there's a whole series in the hardness of that and how you do it and whatever. But the freedom in that is what Paul is talking about, of the peace of God, which you won't understand. But you don't have to understand it. God is taking care of you. So Jesus is guarding you.
Could I say that there's a couple paths here. One, when you were saying God in the future, you're praying about stuff that hasn't happened yet, right? You're praying about the future, but you're trusting because of God's faithfulness from the past. And that's where I think you brought in the Thanksgiving as a critical part of the prayer that is part of the yoke of Jesus, includes Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And you said something about raising Thanksgiving, when we thank God for what he has done and who he is in our own life, and really get honest. It's not just generic, hey, thank you, Jesus, but for this. You were looking in your own life. You talked about it, compared it to an Ebenezer, raising an Ebenezer, which is an Old Testament thing. Tell us real quickly again why Thanksgiving is that.
Yeah, so Ebenezer, I believe, is a Hebrew word, and it basically is a reference to little stone towers or big stone that the Israelite people would resurrect or erect at a site where God showed his provision for the people.
Right.
So
Ebenezer's all over the place.
Yeah, so they were all over the place, and they would have been at big places like the splitting of the Red Sea with Moses and battles and whatever. Right. So that way, when they came across that, they would be like, "Oh yes, in my personal life, I have these Ebenezers, but also in my family and my nation's life, God has showed up here."
Right.
And so, what are the Ebenezers in my own life of? Oh, how has God showed up for me? How has God shown me? What is the marker of that, and how can I remember that? And by remembering that, and then it's trusting. It helps you trust in the future. For me, it helps because it engages my little scientific mind of and I mentioned rock climbing and trusting the harness and the carabiner and the machine and all of the stuff, because it took me forever to trust it, but it hadn't dropped me since, so it'll probably hold me this time.
So in rock climbing, your thinking was changed even as you practiced little steps of faith in trusting the harness and everything, and then you could.
And I remember
so Thanksgiving does that.
Thanksgiving does that.
When we remember to thank God, And it's not just for the big things, right? I mean, we're talking about daily stuff here.
Yeah, and I think, I just remember like when I was rock climbing, like when I was first starting, I would literally just stand on the ground and like fall backwards. And then I would get one climb up and then a little bit more. And then I remember being at the top of the wall and looking at the thing, you know, and not looking down.
Yeah.
And it's, okay, it is done it in the past.
Settle into this harness, this yoke.
Yeah, and I think that's a really practical way of thinking about Thanksgiving with God, especially using Thanksgiving as a tool against anxiety.
Right.
Is okay.
So as we present the things we're anxious about, the needs we have, we present them to God in prayer with thanksgiving. Huge factor. And this is, remember, we're learning the way, the Jesus way of carrying the loads of life. And I love what you said. Paul has this figured out a lot better than any of us do, right?
Yeah. He's got something that I obviously don't have. Yeah. Because he's talking about
or he's farther down the road.
Yeah. Doesn't have it yet, or whatever.
Yeah, and So...
And what was important is that he says, okay, so don't be anxious about anything, but by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, that will lead you to the peace of God, which passes all understanding. And what was cool is that it is possible for me to pray about things and ask God for stuff, and for peace to not be the result.
Right. Yes.
And Paul is saying, if you want peace to be the result of your prayer, include thanksgiving. And that was like this big journey for me of like, oh, okay.
Critical part of the process.
Because I was really, really, really wrestling with what happens if I'm praying to God and I'm asking for things and I'm talking to God about what I'm feeling and I'm petitioning him and he doesn't come through in the way that I see. But if I'm wrapping all of this in thanksgiving for how he's going to act, that frees me from the
From you really being in the center of this, for you being in control of this, it frees it up. So this is God's deal.
Yes.
It puts him as the Lord of this whole thing.
It means that it wasn't a failed prayer if he doesn't answer in the way I want him to.
Bingo. So I want you to continue that thought. And with this last line you put in the notes here, this is a kind of peace that is not rooted in my own ability to create peace, but peace found in a Father in heaven who loves me very much.
And it was revolutionary for me because it just wrapping it all in thanksgiving for how he's going to work in the future allows there to still be it allows for God to still be loving even when my plates are crashing all around me and my life is not getting less anxious and I am still able to thrive and have peace because
you can literally, peace means less anxiety, more confidence in God, ordering your life, which is the definition of peace. And therefore, so you can. Did you actually, Andrew, in the kind of 2 weeks you prepared for that, in the journey up to, even to today, to the message, did you experience this passage?
Yes. Yes. I was talking to someone about these verses, and we were talking about how they're really nice verses, and then when you unpack them and try to okay, but does my life look like this? They can be really hard verses.
Sure.
Because it says don't be anxious, and it's like, well, I am I do have this.
Right.
And I don't have this peace that's passing all understanding, and why, and what, how is this not? And I remember just struggling and being like, how? What is the point of these? And how is God true in all of this?
So wrestling with the passage caused anxiety.
Yeah. And it was just it was like, how is this? God, are you real? And are you really going to be who you say you are? Because I have this life that I'm dealing with, and you have these promises that you're saying.
Right.
How are they both true? And the thanksgiving was how that they are both true.
And in that, they're both true. So that you can say.
So I can say,
so
even
you
when.
you actually, personally, experienced peace.
Yeah. And it was like, it was freeing because it's like, even though, and again, it goes back to this whole, I'm thriving in my anxious world. And it's how Paul could say he has peace when he's in prison and could die and doesn't know when he's getting out. And it was this, and like, again, I don't really understand how, but it's
this peace that passes understanding.
But it's because it's not based on him answering prayers or him, I mean, he does that. He does show up and he answers, but
God,
it's rooted in the blesser, not the blessing. It's rooted in the blessor, Heavenly Father, not the blessings that he's giving me.
Yes. Which is he's in charge of how that blessing works.
Yeah.
And he might be blessing, and I don't even see it that way.
I am blessed by the blessor, not the blessing.
Right.
And that's all fruit. And so it was like this whole, okay, cool. Here we go.
Let's go.
Thanks, God, for the answer.
Yeah, and and so I remember you said something. Okay, God, let's go. I'm ready to take on life. There is a zeal. To life whenever that clicks, that kind of a click, and that's a change of thinking. It's a development, it's growth. And you wrote this: God, whatever you do in response to my request is good because I'm your child. There's a peace there.
Yeah, and
I'm in your hands, man. God, I'm in your hands.
Yeah, it's cool. But it's not easy. That's not an easy prayer to genuinely say either. And
well, actually, the journey that you went on, you wouldn't call that journey easy.
No.
And you probably wouldn't have gone on it if you didn't have to preach.
Right.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It does it?
It does.
Mean, preaching calls you to.
Well, and then I remember thinking about it, like, no wonder pastors know all these verses because they spend so much time thinking about them. And now I know this verse like frontwards and backwards and side to side, and I'm like, wow, this is real, next time I have to do a devotion at a high school, I'll be, and I get this verse, it'll be great. Okay, cool.
I just appreciate seeing so many people online and you stuck with us.
Yeah.
I love some of these comments. We have to let God decide what he is to carry on his side of the yoke, and he has to decide what he wants me to carry. He's in charge. Mm-hmm. God may let a plate fall because we don't need it. That's a great peace giving. Do you feel like this change of thinking that is so important?
Yeah.
That is where it's hard to let go because we don't know why we don't need it in the moment. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I could see that. I know in raising children, you can say, okay, no, you don't. I'm so excited because this Sunday we're going to talk about that. If I were to pack little teaser for Sunday, I need help packing for a long trip because I'll take too much stuff. Mm-hmm. And maybe God says, I need that stuff.
Yeah, and it's so perfect. I love this series because everything fits together so nicely.
Right, exactly.
But that's like the follow-up of what we talked about this last Sunday of like, okay, God, I trust you, whatever you do. Oh, but now I see a plate falling.
Right.
What do I do now?
And the Sunday before you preached was all about, don't you know that you have a Father in heaven who loves you so much more than the lilies of the field? Or if he loves you that much, do you think he's going to let you?
Right, that was the foundation of this praying.
So hang on, and just everybody hang on to this guy that he's growing us up, and he cares us so deeply that he wants us to learn. And the key, the first part of the yoke of Jesus is the fact that Jesus says, come to me. Don't come to a methodology. He says, I have some ways, some things like prayer that you can do, but you're coming to me. Mm-hmm. And that's what you arrived at too. There's a God here.
Yeah.
That no matter how he responds, it's going to be good. Love it. Any final word? You going to preach again sometime?
Yeah. I think that we do pretty good on when we, this is fun.
Very good. Hey, listen, this has been great. So good to be back. Can't wait for Sunday, in person, online. I love the fact that we're going to make a few tweaks, especially to the in-person experience. So need to alert everybody, those of you that are reading, our pre-service is going to shift. Is that right, Andrew? Mm-hmm. What time is pre-service going to start now? For the online
for online, probably 11:55.
10:55.
Oh, yeah. 10:55. We're going to do it before the service.
Yeah, 10 minutes later. So we're going to cut pre-service down. Now, in person, there's going to be stuff going on in here. So keep coming to church at 10:45, and stuff like that, between 10:45 and 11. Service still starts at 11, but pre-service, we're going to shorten that a little bit, so online. So don't be surprised if you can't get online if there won't be anything shining around here online until 10:55. So make some tweaks. So excited. In person, online, Sunday. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you very much. Wonderful job preaching. Appreciate it. Good night.